recently I was chopping a few onions for dinner and all of a sudden I got a video idea. Now, for the context of this video, when I was chopping these onions for dinner, I suddenly got a bad stinging in my eyes. You may have experienced this as well if you have chopped or cooked onions before. Whenever you chop onions, they seem to just make you cry. No one knows why, seemingly. This specific time was unusually bad. I've chopped onions before. Normally it doesn't get me so bad. Maybe it's because I hadn't done it in a while. The sort of sensitivity of these mechanisms was increased since the last time that I'd actually chopped onions. But it was weird. I tried to just carry on. I tried to carry on chopping the onions, pushing through this insanely bad stinging pain in my eyes because I wanted to just save as much time as possible. But yeah, it was weird, and I thought I'd make a video idea. Thought I'd do a bit of research on it and see what actually happens. What is actually the reason that onions make you cry? Many people have just resorted to the explanation and accepted the answer of it's just a chemical that gets into your eyes and makes you cry. But some people like me want to know just that little bit more about the world and the environment that we live in. So if you were watching this video, then congrats for obtaining this knowledge that I'm going to give to you in the next 6-7 or so minutes of this video. So imagine you are chopping an onion for any sort of meal during your day. When you chop an onion sort of against the grain, you may know that onions have layers. You can sort of pull apart the layers of an onion in a way, but if you chop it against the grain, against these layers, you will rupture the cells inside of the onion itself. Now, when you rupture the cells, if you imagine a knife edge compared to a cell, knife edge, it's pretty sharp, right? But if you put a cell here, the knife edge is going to be probably way further out than this screen. So it's almost going to squish the cells in a way. It's going to squish it, it's going to rupture it, it's going to destroy some. And that's a really interesting thing because you don't really see that when you chop an onion because it all seems so smooth. But realistically, you are probably squishing a load of them, rupturing a load of cells as well, opening them up to the environment. And that's when these chemical reactions that create the chemicals that get into your eyes actually occurs. Because if you did sort of pull the layers apart of an onion, that's not going to rupture the cells as much because that's how the onion is designed. But if you cut it against the grain, that will rupture the cells a lot more than if you sort of peeled back the layers. And maybe that you can use that to cook onions next time if you really dislike this sort of stinging feeling whenever you do cook onions, because it's not going to rupture the cells as much because there's less resistance in a weird sort of way. You can't pull apart an onion against the grain, but you will find it a lot easier to pull an onion apart with the grain than if you were trying to cut it with a really sharp knife and such. But the molecule that is responsible for the stinging pain in your eyes is known as syn-propanethiol oxide. But how is this molecule made inside of onions? Now, this molecule is not naturally occurring inside of onions. It's actually only made during the chemical reactions that occur when these ruptured cells are exposed to the environment. But there are a variety of sulfur compounds that exist inside of onions. Onions are from the allium genus, and this means that they contain sulfur compounds naturally as a defense mechanism, and these sulfur compounds are known as alans. As well as this, onions contain enzymes known as alanases, and when the cells of the onion rupture, the alans and the alanases kind of meet together in the sort of different cell parts of the cell, etc., different cells, all that sort of stuff. The alans and the alanases react. The alanases, the enzymes, the alanases use water to help break down the alans, and this will create sulfenic acids. Sulfenic acids, not unlike sulfuric acid, is a type of sulfur acid. It's where you've got an OH on the other side, and then you have an R group, which can be a variable group to whatever can just sort of be there anyway. But there is a specific type of sulfenic acid that is responsible for the making of syn-propanethiol oxide, and this is propene sulfenic acid. 3 carbons, one's got a double bond in it, and then it's got the sort of sulfenic acid group. But this is a very unstable compound, and so it will spontaneously form into syn-propanethiol oxide, which is a very volatile compound, so it will sort of dissolve in the air. It's like a gaseous compound in a way. It will be able to evaporate into the air from the onion. It will go around the room, and it will get into your eyes, it will get into your nose, your ears, your mouth, it will go all around you, but you won't even really notice it in your eyes because the syn-propanethiol oxide will react with the water inside of your eyes to create sulfuric acid. You probably would have heard of sulfuric acid before when you were doing your old school chemistry experiments. You probably would have used sulfuric acid before. It's a very common industrial chemical, but it is produced when synpropanethiol oxide reacts with water and moisture inside of our eyes. Whenever you are chopping an onion, now you know that when you start to feel that stinging feeling, it's actually sulfuric acid, like a tiny amount of sulfuric acid, a tiny minuscule concentration, not enough to actually cause long-term damage. That is actually in your eyes, which when I found this out, I was actually very shocked. I expected it to be so much more complicated. I didn't expect it to be very small molecules that have been like shown inside of this video that I've discovered in my research. I expected these molecules to be very big, but turns out sulfuric acid, one of the simplest acids, one of the most well-known acids that has ever graced the chemical world, is actually the thing that's produced during this chemical reaction that causes the stinging inside of your eyes. But then the reason that you cry, you could just live with the stinging, but the reason that you cry is your own body's defense mechanism. It will try to wash the sulfuric acid, the chemical element, away. It starts to produce the tears, produce the sort of solution that tears actually are. It will try to wash away the chemical element, and that's why you cry so much, because in the tears, it's hoping that it will like make sure the sulfuric acid is at least a bit more diluted than what it already is, and then it will like go down your cheeks, etc. when you are crying, because like you've literally got sulfuric acid in your eyes, and your body is responding to that by crying, because that's the best thing that it can do in that situation. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That is why you cry when you chop onions, because it's sulfuric acid, synpropanethiol oxide reacting with moisture in your eyes to form sulfuric acid, literal sulfuric acid. And because sulfuric acid reacts with the solution on top of your cornea in a way, whenever you like blink, you've probably heard that it sort of regenerates the moisture and stuff. Your eyes are quite like a moist place, and that's why your tears contain an enzyme known as lysosome, which actually helps to break down bacteria that can get and grow like inside of your eyes. Very weird stuff. But sulfuric acid and acids in general have to be in a solution to actually show their acidic properties, because if they're not in a solution, the OH bond that is responsible for the sort of acidic properties simply just won't end up like separating. To be acidic, it has to be an H+ ion, and the other ion, that's what makes it an acid. The H+, the concentration of H+ ions will make this thing determine if it is actually an acid or not. But if it's a solid, the H+ and the other molecule are just straight up bonded together. They're not separating like they would in a solution, and so it can't show its acidic properties. And because the fact that your eye is quite a moist place, it is in a solution, and so it can show its acidic properties only in a very tiny concentration, because otherwise your eyes would literally dissolve. Like, that's how dangerous sulfuric acid actually is inside of the chemical world. But it'll be such a small amount of molecules and concentration that it actually isn't something that can cause acute damage. There may be some kind of long-term damage if you were literally cutting onions every hour of every second of the day, but I don't think anyone has ever done that, and that'd be a very weird thing to do. That's about all I've got, so I hope you enjoyed, and I also recommend subscribing because I love this community of young tribal people who are willing to improve themselves so much more than you already have, and good luck.